A Brexit dividend could keep Northern Ireland in the Union despite border poll claims. We're going to read into this more from iNews, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from iNews with the headline of Brexit dividend could keep Northern Ireland in the EU despite border poll claims. Quitting the EU has left Northern Ireland in a unique position that it could benefit from, experts say. Guys, while you're here, before I give my initial thoughts, if you can, hit the like button and share this across social media so others are notified of this video. So first and foremost, I want to make something very, very clear. Any kind of polling that we read and take off, please take it with a pinch of salt. Don't assume. Now, I'm very skeptical about this headline from iNews, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of you in the comment section would be skeptical of this too. Because to claim that that somehow Brexit is going to keep, that because of what's happened with Brexit, what's happened with this whole, there's been 2 years of being in control by Westminster, and now finally because of the change that is happening here in Northern Ireland, that somehow Northern Ireland could still end up in the Union. I would say, like I've talked about this a bit on the live stream, and there is obviously in the short term, as of right now, there should not be any discussion whatsoever. As of right now, there should not be any discussion of an island reunification. Why? Well, we're not even at 50% of the, not even 50% of people are talking about Irish reunification. And more prominently, people are actually more concerned about, I don't know, the bread and butter of situations that they have in their country that kind of need dealing with, because it's been more than 2 years since the DUPs have been boycotting Stormont, keeping everybody waiting for the executive. I mean, that it's just been an absolute farce from the Union Party side. But I'm glad that Rishi Sunak has sorted this out. So and obviously that has kind of in a way helped the talk of a united Ireland as well. It has helped that talk, but there is still a strong amount of people within Northern Ireland that still believe in the Union, that still will support being part of the United Kingdom, and don't want to be part of a united Ireland. So, and that those people should not be ignored. While I understand that there will be a time and a place for those discussions to have, now is not the time to have that. And now they're claiming here well, obviously we're going to read into it, but obviously my understanding from this headline before we read into it is that the perception is that in the long term, this will make the Union strong. Now, how is that going to make the Union strong in the long term? That is my question, because the longer time passes on, and the more they see the damage and what's happening within England, Wales and Scotland, who don't have the benefits that Northern Ireland have benefits of, because they are still part of the customs union, because they have the unique position of being able to have free trade with Ireland and the rest of the EU because of their unique position geography-wise. And they see what's happening over in England, Wales and Scotland with regards to them not being part of the EU, and that am I the only one that's seen where is the benefit here? and if Northern Ireland becomes a really prosperous nation, and I believe it can do, with the benefits of UK and EU trade within it, the very possibility that Irish unification can happen. I believe it can happen in my lifetime. So why do they think? I'm wondering what this poll really says about the possibility of a long-term union of Northern Ireland in Union. Interesting to say the least. But like I said, guys, don't take polls seriously. Always take them with a pinch of salt. Especially, I think this one, take it with a big pinch of salt. To say the least. So let's read into it. So Brexit has made a referendum on Irish reunification more likely in the short term, but could eventually keep Northern Ireland in the UK, experts have said. After the deal to restore power sharing in the region last week, Sinn Féin's new First Minister Michelle O'Neill claimed a border poll could be held within the next decade. Experts told the Eye that polling shows that voters in Northern Ireland do believe a broader poll is more likely after the political turmoil unleashed on the region by Brexit. But they've said that Brexit was also highlighting the dangers of major constitutional upheaval and has eventually left Northern Ireland in a unique and potentially adventurous economic situation with access both to the EU and UK markets. Professor Katy Hayward of Queen's University Belfast said Brexit led to a lack of trust in the British government in the region, firstly among predominantly Irish nationalist Remainers, as Northern Ireland voted to stay in the EU, but later unionists after Boris Johnson's exit deal created trade barriers between the region and the UK mainland. It has led to support for reunification moving up to around 35 to 40% in the polls, which is an increase but still well under the 50% that may start serious conversations about reunification referendum being triggered under the terms of the Good Friday Agreement for Peace. Meanwhile, nationalist Sinn Féin won last Northern Ireland election for the first time, leading to Miss O'Neill taking the top job in Stormont, the first time Sinn Féin has held the position of First Minister. Professor Hayward told the Eye that Sinn Féin was drawing support from wider parts of society as they protest against DUP's handling of Brexit. We don't see a growing portion of people saying that they are nationalists, but we do see a rise in expectation of Irish reunification and a rise in support of it, Professor Hayward, she said. I also just think going forward as well, as time passes, as generation passes, the talk, it will, obviously, there will be more conversations about it. You know, people move on, people get older, new generations come across. You know, as a new generation of kids come into play who will not have known the troubles of the back of the days of troubles. They will have the history, but they will never have experienced it. So I do wonder how generations over time will feel about the talk of an Irish unification. I mean, it is possible that within 10 years we could still have that referendum. I think it's entirely possible. But the union has not helped itself at all, that's for sure. With the whole Brexit thing, has really kamikazed a united kingdom, that is for sure. Post-Brexit, absolutely, people are thinking about it much more, she said. The prospect feels more real than it did before the Brexit process and all the damage it's caused. Unionists have a reason to feel apprehensive, but she warned that those hoping for reunification will need to have a detailed plan for a post-UK Northern Ireland, as voters would be cautioned by the experience of Brexit. This might actually end up saving the Union in the medium term, she suggested, as voters could reject the uniting with the Republic of Ireland and therefore joining the EU, as it could mean even harder border with the UK, which Brexit has revealed as a major problem for Northern Ireland's economy. Like I said when I talked about this on the Snowflake Viewpoint live stream, which I'll put a link in down below, there needs to be a majority of people wanting to have this vote. I think if you have at least 60 to 80% of the public of Northern Ireland wanting to have this vote, if they want this vote, then give it to them. But it should not. I don't think it should be done if it's on a 50-50 margin. I think it should be 60 to 40. Don't make the same mistakes that were made with Brexit. If 60% or more people want it, then have the referendum, but not if it's 50-50, because you what you don't want is a situation as what's happened with Brexit. You don't want a situation like that where half and half split down the middle. Because there's not enough right now in Northern Ireland for people wanting it, but there's certainly as I said, there is discussions about it, but that's not the main issues right now on the minds of people. The main issues is obviously sorting out the bread and butter issues, getting the economy going, getting people's problems and solved within Northern Ireland, getting their budgets in place, sorting out their healthcare, education, etc. Getting all that, because it's been 2 years since they've had a Stormont there, so get all these things back up and running, and then over the next 5 to 10 years, then start having these conversations. In a funny way, the protocol has revealed how complex Northern Ireland's position is. If you had a harder border with Britain, we would know that it would create a lot of difficulty for Northern Ireland. Jill Rutters of the Institute of Government agreed that the Brexit has made a border poll more possible, as voters eye the relative political stability of the Republic and wonder if it would be better off there, while wondering whether Northern Ireland really gets a say in Westminster with relatively few MPs. Brexit has meanwhile shifted opinion on old barriers to reunification, such as the prospect of leaving the NHS, while some businesses believe they could have had better access to Labour in the EU, she said. At the same time, there has been a big emergence of non-aligned bloc of voters who back the Alliance Party and its 17 members of the Legislative Assembly at Stormont. Those people who don't make it unionism or nationalism, but the defining thing about them are likely to make a more pragmatic decision, Professor Rutter told the Eye. At the same time, the things really put you off about the Republic have diminished, such as the Catholic Church dominance. They have moved ahead of Northern Ireland in areas such as liberalising abortion rights and same-sex marriage. It's now quite liberal and well-off European country. If that's where you want to be, you'll think that I'll have some of that. However, Brexit has created a unique economic position of Northern Ireland that voters may not want to give up if it proves a success. What's going on for unionists is what DUP leader Jeffrey Donaldson has come in around to amazing face is that the protocol wins the framework offers a unique selling point about saying in the UK, which is that Northern Ireland has access to the single market on terms that the rest of the Great Britain has, and that the access to the UK market on terms that Ireland cannot have. So if it really comes down, if they can really benefit from preferral provisions, it means there is an economic downside to reunification, which there wouldn't have been when we were all in the single market together from leaving the European Union, from leaving the UK. So the question is, what's going to happen? What's going to people's position going to be if in 20, 30 years' time, though? Okay, so the argument is that people will be happy with Northern Ireland simply because of having access to both the UK and EU market. But will the people of Northern Ireland, what is more beneficial? I guess the question will be, if that is the case, if we're talking about it in terms of trade and marketing, what is beneficial to them, being part of the EU market or being a part of the UK market? If they had to choose between the two, if we had to make them straight up choose between these two markets, what market would they prefer? As of right now, I think they would take the EU market, considering where it's going, because it's not the UK is not doing that well at all. But I can understand why people would say, but having access to both markets is really good. But I don't think that would be something that would save Northern Ireland from reunification. But it may play a factor into it within 10, 20 years, whenever they have that referendum. She added, in 10 years' time, people will ask, is there evidence of Northern Ireland benefiting from this, or is it not worth the row of beans? Professor Hayward said, ultimately, there's a good reason for both the DUP and Sinn Féin to make power sharing work. The DUP need devolution to work because the alternative is not direct rule, it's reunification. Sinn Féin will have to prove themselves capable of government and making Northern Ireland the kind of place the Republic could consider unifying with. Rishi Sunak said on Monday a visit to Northern Ireland to urge Sinn Féin to focus on the day-to-day concerns of voters rather than a united Ireland. Yeah, and I actually agree with Sunak. Yeah, focus on the day-to-day things, not do reunification right now. That's not something that people will want to be talking about right now, but they will want to have that discussion. There's no question. Prime Minister told O'Neill constitutional change was not priority. He said the deal to restore the Stormont gives the regional politicians more funding and more powers than they ever had. That's what everyone's priority is now, he said. Northern Ireland's Secretary Chris Heaton-Harris also downplayed the prospects, saying at LBC, I don't really think that's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point, yeah, the talk of it. There's going to be a referendum at some point, just not right now. Irish Premier Leo Varadkar, who also visited Northern Ireland to mark the return of Stormont, meanwhile said unification was not a question for today. Yeah. So here's just a little reminder, people. This is it. How can a border poll on your Irish reunification be triggered? So the Secretary of State of Northern Ireland is obliged under the 1998 Good Friday Agreement for Peace to call a border poll if at any time it appears likely for him that a majority of those voting would express a wish that Northern Ireland should cease to be part of the UK and form to be a part of the United Ireland. But there is little agreement on this, how this would be measured, with Labour in December rolling back on the previous pledge to outline criteria. The high-level working group on unification referendum, which brought together 12 experts in politics, law, history and sociology, from universities in Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, Great Britain and the United States. Could not agree. But in 2021, prospects for potential options. So here are the 4 options. So demographics, a Catholic majority in Northern Ireland. If Catholics were assumed to be in favour of unity, however, polls highlighted by the group showed that up to a quarter of Catholics could oppose unification. Number 2, a vote in the Northern Ireland Assembly. If Stormont legislators back a border poll in a majority of vote, but Assembly members do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the vast majority of those voting. Number 3, opinion polls, a series of surveys showing support for reunification seen as the best measure by some as they will ask the exact question, but others argue that response to polls can shift around and methods can be flawed. Yeah, like I said, polls, big picture salt with them. And finally, nationalist dominance party Sinn Féin topping the polls in several different elections could be taken as a majority support. But people vote for nationalist parties for different reasons, some of which are nothing to do with reunification. Yes, there could also be nothing to do with reunification and could be just for the policies that they have that could actually benefit them additionally, as opposed to the talk of reunification with Ireland. Interesting. So, like I said at the start of the video, guys, and I really want to make this point. Yes. Now, what do I believe that Northern Ireland should be a part of Ireland at some point in the future? My honest answer is it's not my place to speak of. Is my honest answer. Yeah, I'm sitting on the fence on it. It should be down for the people to make that decision. However, there is that conversation. While there is conversation about it, in my view, and from what I hear and read, there is not enough people to want that vote, to have that vote. And you want to make sure that if you are serious about doing this and having this vote, you need to do it when at least, I would say, at least in my opinion, at least 60% of the nation wants a referendum on it. At least 60% want a referendum on it. I'm not saying that they want reunification with Ireland, but a referendum on the reunification of Ireland, so that at least then we can have that discussion. I think that's very, very important to distinguish. I'm distinguishing the fact that if people want a vote on it, as opposed to wanting reunification with Ireland, and I think that's a very important point for a democracy point of view. That if the people want to have that vote of choice, then they should be given that vote of choice. However, as of right now, Stormont has just come back together, and let's get, and it's going to be a massive year as it is, because we're going to be interesting to see how does a Labour government, if they topple the Conservatives as we expect, how is that going to affect Northern Ireland as well? That's also going to be a question. How's Labour going to approach dealings with that as well, if any at all? I think there are going to be questions that are going to be asked there as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, like what the budget's going to be when Labour come into power as well. There are lots of bread and butter issues that need to be sorted within Northern Ireland, as we've already stated. And yes, Northern Ireland has the unique benefit of access both to the UK and EU single markets right now. So at this point of time, they need to be taking advantage of this. Is what they need to be doing. So yes, we will be having that discussion again in the future. Talk of an Irish reunification, Irish referendum. But is the time for talking about it? Is the time for doing it now? No, not in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. What about yours, guys? What do you guys think? Do you think, they should be having that conversation now, or should they be having that conversation as maybe in 10 years' time? If the majority of the people of Northern Ireland want it, should they have a referendum on it at least? And I know I have one or two subscribers and viewers from Northern Ireland, so please let me know in the comments section, guys, how you personally feel about it. Do you think that there should be a referendum? Should there be a referendum in your opinions? And if you want to cast how you will vote, please feel free to share it in the comment section down below. Eager to hear what you guys over in Northern Ireland have to say on the matter. If you found this video interesting, if you can hit the like button, we greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video. And if you want to financially support me in the work I do, you can do by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or joining me on Patreon or Rumble for exclusive content. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.